Protestant Christianity Explained, What Unites Us and Why We Differ. This is an introduction to the Protestant denominations and their belief systems. Before we talk about denominations, before we name traditions, and before we compare beliefs, we need to begin with something far more important. What unites Protestants in the first place? Because if we start with differences, we will miss the foundation they all stand on. This series is not about choosing sides. It's not about ranking churches. It is about understanding. And understanding begins with history. The Protestant Reformation, a brief beginning. In the early 1500s, Christianity in Europe was largely unified under one church. But many believers and leaders begin to ask serious questions. They ask, where does authority come from? How is a person saved? And what does Scripture actually say? In 1517, a German monk named Martin Luther challenged certain teachings and practices he believed had drifted away from the Bible. His concern sparked what became known as the Protestant Reformation. The word Protestant comes from the idea of protesting, not rebellion for rebellion's sake, but a call to return to biblical truth. What began as a reform movement eventually led to multiple traditions, each seeking to be faithful to Scripture as they understood it. The soul of Scripture, the authority of Scripture. One of the clearest unifying beliefs among Protestants is this: Scripture alone is the highest authority for faith and practice. This principle is often called sola scriptura. That does not mean tradition has no value. It does not mean teachers have no role. It means that the Bible is the final authority, not church hierarchy, cultural opinion, or personal preference. Across denominations, Protestants believe the Bible is inspired by God, trustworthy, central to Christian life. This shared commitment is the backbone of Protestant belief. Salvation by grace through faith. Another core belief uniting Protestants is this: salvation is a gift of God's grace, received through faith, not earned by works. Good works matter, obedience matters, a changed life matters, but they are the result of salvation, not the cause. Protestants teach that humanity is unable to save itself. God initiates salvation. Faith is the means by which grace is received. While denominations may explain this differently, some emphasizing God's sovereignty, others human response, the foundation remains the same. Salvation begins with God, the priesthood of all believers. Another defining belief of Protestant Christianity is the priesthood of all believers. This means that every Christian has direct access to God through Christ. No human mediator is required for forgiveness, prayer, or relationship with God. Pastors, elders, and leaders serve important roles, but they do not replace Christ as mediator. This belief reshaped Christian life by emphasizing personal faith, personal responsibility, and personal engagement with Scripture. It placed the Bible into the hands of ordinary people and called every believer to live out their faith actively. Why do denominations exist? If Protestants share so much, then why are there so many denominations? The answer is not as simple as disagreement. It is often about emphasis. Different groups focused on different questions. How should the church be governed? Who should be baptized? How do spiritual gifts function? How should worship look? How do grace and free will interact? Culture, geography, language, and history also played major roles. Most denominations did not begin with the intention of division, but with the desire to remain faithful to Scripture as they understood it. Understanding this helps us replace suspicion with perspective. So how this series will work. As we move forward, each denomination will be explored using the same framework so we can learn clearly and fairly. In every episode, we're going to look at who they are, their name, size, and where they're found, historical origins, how and why they're formed, their core beliefs, salvation, scripture, grace, and works, their distinctive beliefs, what sets them apart, their church structure, leadership and authority, their strengths, what they have contributed to Christian life, and the common misunderstandings, what people often get wrong. This structure is not meant to judge, but to understand. Protestant Christianity is not a single expression, but it is a shared faith. Different voices, different perspectives, and one foundation. As we begin this journey, the goal is not to ask who is right, but rather, what do they believe and why? Because understanding does not weaken faith, it strengthens it. And when we begin with what unites us, we can approach our differences with humility, clarity, and grace. In our first denominational episode, we will be covering the Lutheran denomination. So join us tomorrow for episode 1, and God bless you.